Welcome into another edition of Connor's Takes. As now we are officially 1 week removed from the opening round of the NFL draft that saw maybe three of the biggest reaches ever in NFL history. If you want to label it that way, with the Falcons, Packers, and 49ers all reaching in the first round. For players, we're going to digest that first round a little bit today on Connor's takes and give us our takes on really the NFL draft as a whole. But Connor, we are 1 week removed from the NFL draft. What kind of post draft feelings have you felt after the chaos of round one of the NFL draft as we sat here live? And on day 2, same thing. It's
Oh,
just
that was a
chaos continued.
that was a fun night one. It really, really was. I definitely still would not say that some of these reaches were the worst in NFL history because there's definitely plenty of other reaches that are just as bad, if not worse, throughout the years. Don't forget about Daniel Jones to the Giants all those years ago. Even a pick,
Oh,
even I believe it was a pick right before that. Cleveland Farrell to the Raiders was another insanely large reach in that year's draft. But I mean, there were some interesting picks, especially in round one. I actually, there were a lot of picks that I agreed with. There were some that were,
mhm.
kind of reaches. The Dolphins taking Chop Robinson was kind of a reach, but he filled a need, so it wasn't a bad pick. But you could have realistically probably traded down and still gotten Chop Robinson.
Probably, yeah, the way the draft was
And
going.
exactly. And I thought that I think the Chiefs always wanted Xavier Worthy from the start. I know I said that live on the show,
Mhm.
and it was even smarter for Bean to make the trade with them because they pretty much knew they wanted Xavier Worthy, and there you have it. Bean got an extra pick out of it, which turned into Dwayne Carter, and I think that was the right call. But what I thought was interesting, obviously, talking about reaches, the three reaches that I thought we had in the draft, obviously, aside from the obvious, I'll get to the obvious at the very end. But the Jordan Morgan pick by the Packers was confusing. I
That
didn't
was
think,
very confusing.
I did not think Jordan Morgan was rated as a first round talent. And according to ESPN, he had an overall rank of 40 on their board. 40, and he went 25th. So there's a reach in terms of only statistical value. I will never complain about rebuilding an offensive line ever or
Mhm.
making one better because it's arguably the most important position group in football because you're protecting the most important position in football, the quarterback. But that was kind of an odd choice, is
It
all
was.
I will say about that, because I felt like you could have got Jordan Morgan a lot later if you really wanted an O lineman. Because look at the guys that went after Morgan. Graham Barton was the immediate next pick. Tyler
Yeah.
Guyton was still on the board. I mean, you had a lot of good players that went to other teams. And I mean, they even had a need at cornerback. They could have taken Nate Wiggins there, but
They could have.
instead they decided to go with an offensive tackle. Okay. Okay.
Eh, the Packers confused me a bit with some of their draft picks. I wouldn't say all of them, but some of them were it felt like it felt like, because if you know the Packers, they're not owned by one particular person. It felt like the entire city drafting Green Bay.
Haha.
The selections for their team. If it really felt like that, like Graham Burton was there. You said got in. JPJ been mocked multiple
Mhm.
times in that range, and they went and reached for Morgan. I mean, could he turn out to be better than all the other ones? Sure, but
Mhm.
I don't think was worthwhile for that first round pick when you had
Oh, yeah.
everyone else on the board. So that kind of shifts into our first topic of the night, which is, which who had a slam dunk draft from the teams that didn't make the playoffs, because there's a lot of teams that were in the playoffs last year, improved their championship status for this season, but there's teams that are outside that were outside of the playoffs looking in, who might say, "Hey, hi, we're here. We're gonna come for your spot next year." Who's that team, or who are the teams? Do you think?
Ah. Well, I'll give you one from the NFC and one from the AFC. If you're
Go for it.
specifically talking um, teams that did not make the playoffs, and the NFC team in particular, I believe, well, not I believe, we all saw it if you saw the draft, is the
Mhm.
Arizona Cardinals. They
Oh
really
yes.
had a very, very nice draft, top to bottom. The only needs that they really didn't address is a need at defensive tackle, but other than that, they got their biggest priority needs taken care of. Marvin Harrison Jr. was an obvious choice. I really liked the trade they made to get Darius Robinson to jump back into the first round. And obviously, the Max Melton pick was really good, and Trey Benson, all very, very solid picks in the first two rounds. Well, Trey Benson was their second pick in the third round. So there were a lot of really good moves that they made that I think won't. You got to remember this team was not good last year. And by
No.
not good, I really mean not good.
Yeah, they were.
And
Yeah.
so is it possible that the Cardinals might have an outside shot at contending for the playoffs? Maybe. I mean, you just never really know because the draft every year is always a crapshoot. You get guys that you think are going to pan out that don't, and you get guys that everybody thinks are bad picks become superstars. I'm looking right at you,
Oh yeah.
Jordan Love. They all thought
Oh
that was the
yeah.
worst pick of the century at that time, and now look at them. Looks like the Packers
So
found their successor indeed.
they're
And
they're good luck charms as quarterbacks.
it really is. I hate to say it, but it really is. I mean, honorable mention to the obvious in the NFC, which is the Bears. Obviously, Caleb Williams and
Oh
Romo
yeah.
Dunze, for only having 5 picks, those first two were absolute slam dunks. I loved the Torrey Taylor pick too because punter. Got to have good punters.
Oh
But
yeah.
to be fair, I thought he went high. I figured he could have easily gone in the late rounds. I think they could have got him with
Oh
a
yeah.
later pick. But at the end of the day, they still got a punter. And I thought it was a really nice get, but could have used him later and used that fourth rounder on a pick, like another defensive tackle or another offensive lineman. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not complaining. But
Oh
that
yeah.
that again was an honorable mention because the AFC had a lot of really good drafts out of teams that, well, some good drafts, some kind of okay drafts, but if we're going to look at a team that specifically did not make the playoffs that had a nice draft, the AFC one's a little actually no, it really isn't confusing. I thought the Chargers had an all right draft. Taking Joe Alt to protect Herbert was a great idea.
Awesome.
You know,
Yes.
And from what I understand, they actually did it. They took calls on trades for Justin Herbert that night and refused all of them because why
I
would
mean,
you
that's a smart
trade?
choice.
Exactly. What were you going to get with what were you going to do? What were you going to do with that next pick? And um, the only pick of theirs that I really kind of, well, to be fair, what I didn't like is the fact they drafted 3 wide receivers. I mean, I know you're a little weak at the position, but your second round pick was a slot guy in Lad McConkey, and the Chargers then went with Brendan Rice and Cornelius Johnson in the 7th round. I mean, I'm glad you're rebuilding your room, but if you really needed a wide receiver, why not get a few more in higher rounds? All in all,
Sure,
though,
yeah, that would have helped.
I really thought it was a solid draft. I think it will help them. I don't necessarily think that they will be in any position to dethrone Kansas City, but I think they will definitely be better than they were last year. Despite last year, I'm pretty sure we had a Herbert injury and a lot of other factors led to the Chargers having some issues, so to speak.
You got to protect the quarterback. That's the utmost priority for any NFL team. So that's why if you're the Bills, obviously the Bills drafted a couple offensive linemen. Maybe it wasn't the biggest need for the for the Bills to take offensive linemen. You always want to add to the room. It doesn't hurt to add more to the room. Just like
Mhm.
just like depth at corner. The saying goes, you can't have enough corners. I mean, you can't because it's an important position because you have to stop the other team's offense. So, if you're looking at a team that really crushed the draft, you could say the Chargers did a pretty good job. You
Mhm.
know, couple late round receivers with some high quality and upside. I was pounding the table for a guy like Bryce out of USC. I thought, if the Bills were going to add a late round receiver, he was the guy that I would want. And they didn't get him, which is okay. But now he's with the Chargers, and part of the plan is how do you dethrone the Chiefs is by adding more to your offense. You know,
Mhm.
you could play KC on a defensive battle, but most cases you're not. It's going to come down to fundamental coaching
Mhm.
in those late stages, and Andy Reid's one of the better coaches in the NFL, and you're
Oh
just
yeah.
not going to beat him through coaching. You're just going to have to beat him in an arm race,
Mhm.
to who's going to get the ball last, AFC
Oh boy, yeah.
divisional type game.
Mhm.
Just it's going to how to be, and I think that's where the Chargers and everyone in the AFC, especially in the AFC West, that's how they're going to have to do it.
Mhm.
They have an offensive line. If you don't, Chris Jones is going to rock you. So adding to the offensive line
Oh
is a
yes.
necessity, and they hit on it.
They did. And if you want to talk about other honorable mentions in the AFC that had really good drafts, the Tennessee Titans had a really good draft.
They did.
JC Latham was kind of a reach, but you know, Joe Alt was their guy, and he was already gone because the Chargers got him first. I thought Latham was the only. I thought Latham was a reach because at the time you still had a lot of premier offensive tackles on the board. The Tavondre Sweat pick is going to be a great pick if he actually pans out, with the
Mhm.
character concerns and the DWI and all of that. Now, if all that goes, he puts that behind him and goes out and plays ball, now he will pan out. And if he reaches his potential, that's going to be a slam dunk pick. I think the Titans had a sneaky good draft. And as much as I also hate to say it, I think the Jets had a really sneaky good draft too.
Yeah. I
We
mean,
all hate to say it. Well, I mean, I already said it on the show. I actually thought the Dolphins and Jets both had the Dolphins had a good draft. The Jets, uh, Olufashanu was a really good pick. I liked Jordan Travis too because obviously you're going to need a quarterback at some point in the future. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that many years left,
oh yeah. I
so
mean,
it just
the
depends on
the
what
one
you're going
question
to
I
do.
have with the Jets draft is I just look at it really quick. They go Braylon Allen, which is a great pick by them, the running back out of Wisconsin. I had him on my big board heading into the draft as a big physical guy behind James Cook. And the Bills went Ray Davis, which I loved by the Buffalo Bills. And then in the fifth round, they got another running back, and Isaiah Davis out of South Carolina State. I kind of question that a little bit because I know they have a pretty stacked running back room. You know, I believe Bryce Hall's still there. So even though he's coming off the ACL,
Oh, you mean
he
Brees
normally
Hall?
takes Bryce Hall. Yes, you know, I think it normally takes about a year to get back from a full ACL tear. I mean, you adding more you can add more depth to the running back room. It just makes me interested in see if the where the Jets decide to go. Are they now just going to decide, Aaron Rodgers is getting up at age, we're just not going to throw the ball as much and we're just going to rely on the ground game behind our offensive line, which we already added to in the offseason.
Hmm. And I think it's a fairly interesting idea that the Jets have. I mean, definitely adding to an offense with Aaron Rodgers is ideal. Give him all the help in the world. And I thought a few of their other picks, I actually had a very interesting opinion on Quantez Stiggers, the
Oh,
cornerback from Toronto, the Argonauts.
in the
You had
CFL, yes.
heard, yeah, you had heard Dean talk about him a few times
Mhm.
too.
Yep.
And I actually liked the idea of if the Bills needed a late guy, why not get him if you can? But the oh heavens, the Jets got him. So it's
Yeah.
like, all right, let's see what happens. But there were plenty of good drafts. Like I don't really think, there were obviously bad drafts, but what I honestly thought about was I feel like the teams that really nailed the draft, there's a few of them, the ones that really nailed the draft, like I mean A to A plus grades are all in the
Mhm.
NFC, in particular, the
Yeah.
Cardinals and the Commanders. I thought the Commanders had one of the best drafts all night long. Jaden Daniels was a good pick. I thought it was the right call too. Johnny Newton. I mean, they had a really, really nice draft. Ben Sinnott with their second round pick. Luke McCaffrey. Man, I mean, they had a really good draft. Now, will it be enough to possibly contend for the playoffs? We'll see. I mean, they really didn't address. They got one guard in the entire draft, Brandon Coleman out of TCU. I don't think they did not draft any other offensive linemen. And that offensive line last year was the offensive line that got Sam Howell sacked the most times out of any quarterback in the league, and you didn't really improve it that much through the draft. So are you going to rely on Jaden Daniels using his legs, or what are you going to do? So I thought that was their only question mark. I thought the rest of their picks were actually really good and really valuable in the later rounds. But, that's just one of the better drafts that I thought
I
we
think
saw.
the Commanders, I question that too a bit, in area we just got finished talking about the Chargers and their offensive line, protect Justin Herbert. Commanders couldn't protect Sam Howell the entire year last year. I mean, you can go back to the Buffalo game where Buffalo just destroyed that offensive line. Just constant pressure. And then you get Jaden Daniels. Yes, he's a good pocket passer, but yes, he also has good legs, but you don't want him to feel all that pressure from an offense from opposing defensive lines immediately in his first year, because then people are going to start questioning Jaden Daniels and like, is he the future in Washington before he can even hit the field. And now speaking about Jaden Daniels, this fits perfectly into our next topic.
Yes, it does.
Who has the better situation out of the top three quarterbacks selected?
Well, this is a question with the easiest answer, and that's Caleb Williams. And you want to know how high this goes? Caleb Williams is stepping into probably one of the best situations that a number one overall pick that is a quarterback has ever stepped into ever. Like, you have to consider what the Bears have, you know, on their offense. They've got DJ Moore, they've got Keenan
Mhm.
Allen, they've got Cole Kmet, and they drafted Romo Dunze with the ninth pick in the first round, after Caleb Williams. So it's like you literally have set Caleb Williams up for success more than any other team has ever set up their first round rookie quarterback for success. Jaden Daniels has a fairly interesting situation. Sure, he's got Terry McLaurin at wide receiver, and they drafted Ben Sinnott at tight end. I believe they
Mhm.
also traded for Zach Ertz, or they signed Zach Ertz. I'm pretty sure
I
Zach
think he's
Ertz.
there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Not
saying.
too sure.
Well, either way, yeah, I believe he is. But what I'm getting at, though, yeah, no, he does currently play.
Yeah.
He does currently play with the Commanders, and I thought so. They've got a really nice offense that Caleb Williams is stepping into. Like I said, this is easily one of the best situations, if not the best situation for a first round overall rookie quarterback that we've ever seen. Trevor Lawrence was not in a good position. Let me tell you right now. Trevor Lawrence wasn't. Who else can I think of? Baker Mayfield wasn't.
Oh, poor Baker.
Out of all the first round rookie quarterbacks, let me actually quarterbacks. All right, I want to see something because out of all the quarterbacks that I can think of, like I said, it's definitely Caleb Williams has the best situation. None of the
Oh,
rest of them
he
have ever
certainly
had
does.
any good. Like Drake May, you're telling me you can't argue Drake May. Like, you can't, because Drake
He has
May,
no wide receivers.
he has, yeah. Who do they think? Who's he throwing the ball to? Because I think Devontae Parker is gone. I think all you're left with
It's
is
Kendrick Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne and Juju Smith-Schuster. Is that really who you're going to give your rookie quarterback weapons? Is that really going to be your wide receivers?
If you
Like,
talk about an offensive line, they have the offensive line, but they
true.
just have no special players. Like wide receiver is probably one of the worst in the NFL. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, if you don't know a name at running back, that means they probably ain't that good. So who do they have at running back, to give them some quality yards out of the backfield? I mean, Drake May has wheels, but he only uses that when he can get outside of the pocket and there's a lane for him to run. So he isn't going to be the Jaden Daniels, uh, Lamar Jackson prototype, just to take a quarterback option, quarterback read, and just take it for 20 yards. So the they they got Javon Baker, which is good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really all you're going to hear all year is May to Baker and May to Bourne. I don't really think May to Schuster is going to happen as often. Could it? I mean,
No.
could the Patriots surprise people this year? I mean, they could be a sneaky good team, you know, but just like last year, but where we thought they could have been that sneaky-ish good team, grinded out 6 games, I believe they only end up winning, like, 4. So, that's where I
Mm-hmm.
kinda see where the Patriots are. Could they potentially steal one against the Bills like they did last year? They
Stop
for
it.
sure can.
Stop it. Do
Which
not put that in the universe. We don't want to hear it. But I
or
did
any other
actually.
team like the Dolphins.
Well,
There you go.
okay. Okay, now there you go. But I did actually find a list of the first round quarterbacks. And yes, if
Okay.
you go back and look, yeah, none of them that were drafted in the first round, heaven forbid, not even a number one overall, have been in some pretty awful situations. For instance, Jared Goff was the first round pick to the Rams in 2016, which oddly enough was the last time they had a first round pick prior to last year or prior to this year's draft. Jared Goff went into a horrible situation in LA. Then you look at Kyler Murray. I'm pretty sure he was the first overall pick in his year as well.
Yep.
He was also in a terrible, terrible situation. Joe Burrow. Oh my God, that Cincinnati team was awful.
Oh, that
Genuinely
offensive
awful.
line.
Oh yeah, I mean, it led to his injury his rookie season. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all the first round quarterbacks generally have been put in very awful situations. Caleb Williams is the outlier here.
Oh,
This is
he's for sure.
definitely, yeah, he's got real wide receivers.
Weapons.
He's got a real tight end, and the best part about it, he's got he's got the talent and he's got the potential. So we'll just have to see how he does. I think if he is as high as his potentials is, in terms of skill set, the Bears actually very well could be a sneaky playoff contender next season. And you can, in the NFL, you just never know what's going to happen year after year. I mean, look at some of the differences that you've seen throughout league years. I mean, we've seen teams go from 3-13 one year to 10-6 the very next year. So anything
I
can
mean,
happen.
they were 7-10 last year
Hmm.
with Joe Burrow. I'm sorry, my God, I don't know why I keep saying Joe Burrow today. I don't
Yeah,
know.
me
That's just
neither.
weird. It just keeps coming out of my mouth. I have no idea why. But with Justin Fields, I mean, you go from Justin Fields, who was injured for part of the year, and they had that. I think Tyson Bagent was the quarterback for a few of those wins. So now you go Caleb Williams with a really good backfield and some really good weapons and a solid offensive line. And I think that's the only question you could have with the Bears offense at the moment, other than what will Caleb Williams bring to the Bears, is the offensive line. If they can get some solid offensive line and Caleb Williams, is anywhere from a 2,000 to 2,500 yard passer, and you can get 20, 25 touchdowns, maybe the Bears find a way to be 9-8 and be a playoff team. I mean, I was
Hmm.
riding with the Green Bay Packers all year last year, one AFC North team. I mean, hey, sorry, NFC North team.
Good
Maybe
Lord,
another
Paul.
NFC North team adds me to the bandwagon this year. Still got some hyping up to do. But 7 and
Oh yeah.
10 last year, being in the playoff hunt basically all year last season. If Caleb Williams can turn into something, and prove that he is the quarterback of the Chicago Bears future, sure, go for it. I'll ride the Chicago Bear train.
I
But
mean, hey, it's an interesting time to be a Bears fan. It really is. If you're a Bears fan, this is definitely there is hope in Chicago, and I don't blame them one bit. So anyway, that was that topic with probably one of the easiest answers of all time. Obviously, Caleb Williams. I feel really bad for the other two, and Jaden Daniels and Drake May in their situations because they are not the best. But moving
Yeah.
on, what was the next topic you had, Paul? I believe you were cooking
The
with these
next
two.
topic, the next topic we got tonight is, let's do this. Which team will regret not taking a quarterback?
Ooh, all right.
The Giants or the Raiders?
Well, let's put some
There's
context
an
behind this
easy
too.
answer. There's
Is
an
there?
easy
Is
answer.
there? I mean, is there really though? You have to look at it
That's
in
what I was about to
context.
say. There's an easy answer, but is it that easy?
It's not that easy. No, there is no easy answer to this question because you have to look at it in context. Could the Giants have taken JJ McCarthy at 6? Maybe, but it would have been another situation like I was talking about earlier. Who's he throwing the ball to? At least you're giving Daniel Jones a weapon to throw the ball to in Malik Neighbors. They made a solid pick in the first round. They needed to make that pick because what else are you going to do? I mean, you could have taken an O lineman, and or you realistically might have been able to take a quarterback. I mean, you could have. JJ McCarthy was still on the board,
Mhm.
and the Falcons would take Penix just a few picks later. But at the end of the day, I don't really believe the Giants were in a good position right away to take a quarterback, especially with how fast they went off the board initially. And if you go back and you look at their draft class, the only thing I didn't really like about their draft class, I mean, I loved the Malik Neighbors and Tyler Nubin picks for sure. I think a lot of their best picks were in the early rounds. I feel like if they really wanted a quarterback, they should have at least tried maybe in the 5th or 6th round. Now, you talk about the Raiders, on the other hand, they were in the exact same position. I think if you really wanted an answer, it would be the Raiders. They are the ones that are gonna regret not taking a quarterback in the future because let's be completely real right here. Would you rather have Aiden O'Connell or Daniel Jones?
Right now, would
Yeah, would
probably
you
be
rather?
Daniel Jones.
I would rather have Daniel Jones too, because at least in the system with Saquon Barkley, he won a playoff game. So can we just remember that Daniel Jones has
Yeah.
won a playoff game? So the fact is, the Raiders with the Brock Bowers pick was really good. I'm still amazed he fell all the way to 13th overall. The Jackson Powers Johnson pick was insanely high value. The Delmar Glaze one I thought was kind of interesting. I feel like they really, really reached for this guy. But at the end of the day, it's still an O lineman. If he doesn't pan out, then we can all go, "Oh, I told you so." But in the 4th, 5th, maybe 6th round, I feel like they should have taken a chance on a quarterback because the Saints, they were in a similar position and they took Spencer Rattler in the 5th round.
Mhm.
The Jets, who will not have a starting quarterback in the next few years, were thinking ahead of the curve and took Jordan Travis in the 5th round. What's the Raiders' excuse? I mean, legitimately, what's your excuse for not taking a quarterback in the 5th round? You had the 13th pick in the 5th round and you spent it on Tommy Eichenberg, which, by the way, if I remember correctly, is Liam Eichenberg's brother. And it's that was an interesting choice. I don't think he was a bad pick, a very bad pick. I don't think it was a very bad pick. But if you really wanted a quarterback, that would have been where you get the quarterback. So they're the ones that are going to regret the situation in context. Could they have each drafted a top quarterback in round one? The Giants could had. The
Mhm.
Raiders, no, they were all gone by that point. But they would have been crazy if they wanted a quarterback this high anyway, because especially considering all the quarterbacks were gone. JJ McCarthy went to the Vikings and Bo Nix went to the Broncos. So they had to stand pat. And if they really wanted a quarterback, which they really do need a quarterback, they should have taken one in the 4th or 5th round. Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, one of them, but they didn't. And they're going to regret it in
Mhm.
my mind. I don't really know what they're going to do with the position. Are they going to what are they going to do? That's my
I
question.
mean,
What are they going to do? Because it
there's
seems to me that you are in a very bad position despite the fact that you loaded up on talent, which I won't lie, they did with especially with Brock
Mhm.
Bowers. But
Oh,
at the end of the day, who's throwing them the ball? Who's throwing
yeah.
Brock Bowers the ball? Who's throwing Devontae Adams the ball? Who's throwing him the ball? Answer that question. Nobody.
Could they see Aiden O'Connell as a developmental quarterback, as he could possibly be, I don't know, the kind of like a game manager for them, as they
Oof.
have a solid team, maybe add a running back. Because say if Josh Jacobs, was still on the Raiders. Okay, you have Josh Jacobs and you have a bunch of talent. You could go the San Francisco route and hope Aiden O'Connell could be, the Brock Purdy type, game manager esque quarterback. And you're asking him to make a couple good throws a game, and that could lead to a potential win, or just be the game manager. You have to make a couple of throws. You have to go 12, 20. You have to go 15 of 20 instead of 25 of 30. We're going to limit the amount of passes you get, because we have that style of offense we can run. But the Raiders really don't have a for sure number one running back at the current moment on their depth chart. So they're really relying and putting their faith on Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew to be the quarterback that could lead them that could bring them to the next level. I don't think either quarterback is doing that for the Las Vegas Raiders. On the Giants, on the other hand, they have Daniel
Wait a
Jones.
second. I
What?
forgot. They got Alexander Madison in free agency.
They
I
did.
believe they did. Yeah, I believe they did.
Mhm.
Their starting running back is Zamir White. Right behind him, wait. Yeah, I just looked up their depth chart really quick. I might be a year behind, but let me double check. But yeah, if they have okay, yeah, never mind. Let me go into their depth chart here. Yeah, they have Amir Abdullah actually. Yeah, I might have been a year behind when I looked it up, but not a bad room. I mean, I think there's room for improvement, but it's not like it's awful,
It's not
awful.
terrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely way worse situations at the running back position.
I mean, if you look at the Giants, I
Oh, god,
think
one of the best,
Daniel
one of the
Jones
best, and
has
one
the
of the worst.
potential. He has the potential to become the quarterback that we all thought he possibly could have, or could be, with Brian Dable. He just hasn't maybe gotten the weapons, or the right weapons around him to maybe to be a successful quarterback. That's the only argument I have towards, the Giants if they wanted to keep Daniel Jones. But I don't think Daniel Jones is the long-term answer for the Giants. You know, they
Oh,
could
of
think
course
that,
not.
but I don't. To me, they overspent on Daniel Jones.
Oh,
They gave him all that money,
mhm.
and I didn't like why they gave up all that money to Daniel Jones.
Oh,
But
believe
maybe they
me,
just
you are
decided they
not
didn't
the
wanna
only one.
pay the outside quarterback market
Mhm.
to upgrade.
Yeah, and you're not
But
the only one that thinks that, I promise you. I think that you and, like, 99% of people think that the Giants overpaid Daniel Jones all because of one playoff game. One playoff game that Saquon Barkley practically carried the team. So, yeah, crazy pick. Or a crazy contract, if you ask me. Alrighty. Didn't you have another topic, Paul? I
yes,
believe you did.
I
All
did.
right. Yes, hit
We're
me.
gonna we're gonna make a top 5 draft winners for combining here.
Ooh,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're gonna go. We're gonna combine
oh,
on
this
making
this is
a
gonna be
top
good.
5 winners of the NFL draft. You can go first. You can give us 5. I'll give you 4, and then we'll just bounce back and forth, and
Okay.
we'll do it that way.
All right. Well, if we are going to do it this way, I will start at number 5. I think people are going to think I am a little crazy for this one, but it's us. I think the Bills had one of the most solid drafts out of
Mhm.
anybody, and it's solely because we took players at valued players at good positions that we really needed them. Cole Bishop, I actually think, was our most valuable pick in terms of where we
Oh, yeah.
got him.
I
I
agree.
mean, maybe it was kind of con- consider that it may have been a little bit of a reach, but there's no guarantee that where we picked Dwayne Carter, that Cole Bishop was going to be there. Cole Bishop could have been long gone by the last pick of the third round. So
Absolutely.
I really loved the Cole Bishop pick just for the player that he is and reuniting him with Dalton Kincaid, of course. The I love the Dwayne Carter selection as well, and the Ray Davis one, that's gonna be a very under the radar good
Pure
pick.
gold.
Yes, Ray Davis,
That
the SEC leading running back in receiving touchdowns. After seeing James Cook drop all the passes, yeah, I like the idea that we have a very talented receiving back. Maybe that can make James Cook more of a more of a power back kind of guy. I love the Cedric Van Pran-Granger pick too. That was solid. We might
I
need a
agree.
center, hopefully not. It's depth at best, and at worst, you have a guy that could take over for Connor McGovern. I also really liked the Daquan Hardy pick in the 6th round. I thought that was some insane value. So I actually think the Bills had a really good draft. So if that was 5, Paul, give us your 4. Let's hear it. Don't blow our minds now.
Really quick, you can the Bills draft. I mean, you and Ben can talk about Keon Coleman all day.
Duh.
I mean, I could join that conversation too, but I can talk Cole Bishop all day. He was the guy I needed the Bills to take because people were talking Cam Kinchins as before
Oh
was
dear
the
God,
best
no,
safety in the draft, and the Bills had to go get him.
no.
That flunked out.
I'm so glad it
Tyler
did.
Newbin. Tyler Newbin, he was an exciting player. He definitely could take over the starting role at safety, but he doesn't bring the same aspects as what Cole Bishop brings. I could talk about Cole Bishop for the rest of the show because just the stats, his athleticism, everything about Cole Bishop brings so much excitement to the Bills defense,
He
and
was
he's yeah,
he was
just
the
amazing.
best pick available at the position as well. Tyler Newbin was long gone by the time the Bills got around to picking again in the 2nd round. Javon Bullard, the safety out of Georgia, went 2 picks prior to that. And then Kalen Bullock, the Texans literally, I don't remember if that trade was, I believe they traded up into the
Mhm.
14th pick of the 3rd round to get Kalen Bullock, but you see exactly what I mean. Kalen Bullock, Tyke Smith, then Cam Kinchins, all in the 3rd round. So,
Oh,
do
yeah.
you really? So, Cole Bishop, for where we got him, was the best place to get him out of all the
Absolutely.
safeties that were off the board at that point. So,
Alright,
that was
number
the
4.
Bills. Paul, you gotta give us your 4, and it can't obviously be the Bills because I just said the
Oh,
Bills.
yeah. You just said the Bills. I'm gonna shift over to the NFC, and it's gonna be an NFC East team. It's going to be the Eagles. I mean, you look at the top 2 picks. You go Quinion Mitchell and you go Cooper DeJean. That's really, really good. I
Oh,
also
that is
like
really
their
good.
4th and 5th round picks with Will Shipley and Anaya Smith. And then you can go later rounds in Johnny Wilson. They
Don't remind
they
me.
hit the
Stop
skill
reminding me.
position. They hit the 2 biggest holes on their team. It's the skill position at running back and wide receiver in both quality picks. They double dipped at wide receiver, but then they also hit an area where they needed to get, which was cornerback and just defensive back help. They
I'm
got that with their first 2 pick. Cooper DeJean fell in their laps. They
He really
said, "We
did.
gotta go get Cooper DeJean," and Cooper DeJean could be your cornerback of your future.
Mhm.
You could have the 1-2 killer punch, or you can sift him out to safety as he learns that position. What
I'm
is
not
number 3?
I'm also not gonna let you get over the fact that you were dreading the idea of the Bills taking Cooper DeJean at 33. I'm not gonna let you get over that because you were so scared that they were gonna do it. You and Jenna both were mortified that they were gonna do it, and they went Keon. So,
They I
thank
wouldn't mind Cooper DeJean at 28 ish. Just depends on how the board fell. If they would have took him at 28, I probably would have been a little. I would been slightly holding a grudge to the next day with Bean because I did that
Mhm.
when they traded out of the first round.
Yeah, I
But
remember
we're not talking
that
that.
was interesting. But,
We're
I
talking about the
actually
third best team.
yeah, and I actually think that, that Johnny Wilson pick just kills me because he literally went to the Eagles, man. That for what Johnny Wilson can bring to the Eagles is just ludicrous. I am amazed that he fell to the 6th round. I thought for sure he was gonna be gone in the late 4th round, maybe early 5th round. All the way to the 6th round
That's
baffles
something
me.
interesting that we have to talk about on Monday. Is how far some of these wide receivers fell
Yeah, Johnny Wilson
because
in particular.
that's a whole can of worms because we thought a lot of people thought there was going to be whole big population filled first round picks of wide receivers and it really it never happened. Like all of these guys went second round later. But
Mhm.
let's get back on track. Who's the number 3 team? The third winner of the NFL draft.
Well, you had to say Eagles. So now you're making me think here, but if I had to be completely honest, I am not leaving the state for number 3. The Steelers had an incredible draft
They
because
did.
the first thing they did after they picked up both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, look at what they did. Round 1, Troy Fautanu. Round 2, Zach Frazier. Instant O-line revival. And then what did they do right after that? Roman Wilson, a guy who everybody knows I was really high on and really wanted for the Bills, went to the Steelers. And
He
then
did.
look at what happened when they traded back into the 3rd round. Or no, it wasn't a trade into the 3rd round. It was a comp pick. They took Peyton Wilson. Like, this draft for them was absolutely insane. I would have said if this team did not make the playoffs last year, they would have this year, but obviously, they did. They made the think about this for a second, Paul. They went,
I'm
I
thinking.
believe, 10-7. They went 10-7 with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Actually, he got hurt. It was a rotator. It was a rotation at quarterback between Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. That team still went 10-7. Now you have Russell Wilson. Obviously, it's not the same Russell Wilson as the one we all know, but it's still Russell Wilson. You gave him more help at the wide receiver position in Roman Wilson. Pittsburgh is known to be an insane factory at wide receiver, and you gave him all the protection in the world with Troy Fautano and Zach Frazier. And then you beefed up your defense with Peyton Wilson. I
Yeah,
mean, this is going to be a sneaky good team. They were 10-7. Mike Tomlin just really wants to keep that streak alive.
he does. That's a Mike Tom. That has to be what Mike Tomlin thinks about every season as it gets closer to the end of the wire. Like, who cares about playoffs? I mean, I need that winning record to be with me the entirety of my coaching career. But I agree, the Steelers had a sneaky good draft. I mean, you could really say three of the four AFC North teams had a really good draft. I mean, especially Steelers, Ravens. You talk about the AFC North beating up each other on every year. How about the
Mhm.
NFC West? Let's go back out to the NFC West for a minute. And the
Oh,
Los Angeles
yep.
Rams,
I had a feeling you were going here.
they killed the draft.
They
I
did.
mean, Jared Verse. Then you go Braden Fisk. You pounded the table for these two guys to be together
I did.
in the
I did.
NFL. And one team listened to you, and it was the Rams.
Of course, it would
They
be
will
the
have
Rams.
the 1-2 combo of Verse and Fisk as they try to rebuild that defense to being championship caliber. But they also added to their offensive line and their skills positions with quality late round picks. That's what really wins you the NFL draft, right? You have to hit on
Mhm.
your first three picks. They got Verts, Fisk, and Corum. They hit on their first three picks. They hit on their later round picks with Limmer and Winnington, and they also picked a pretty solid offensive lineman and Levson. So collectively, they had a really good draft, adding to the defense,
Mhm.
skills position, and their offensive line to protect Matthew Stafford. They had one of the best drafts possibly in the NFC West. And a team like
Mhm.
the San Francisco 49ers, who have been ruling that division for a little while, the gap between the San Francisco 49ers and Los Angeles Rams have gotten closer. And I think with the Seattle Seahawks and Cardinals having a good draft, I think the gap between who might win the NFC West might be the same thing as the same discussions we were having last year. Who could possibly win the AFC North?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that. I still honestly don't. If you're talking about the NFC West as a whole, I don't think the Rams had the best draft in that division. They had the second best draft in that division. The Cardinals had
Mhm.
the best draft in that division. As for the best drafts out of anybody, I already talked about Arizona. I
Mhm.
talked about Washington,
You did.
obviously. Um, if I had to really give a definitive opinion on which team had the best overall draft, I still really can't. There's a lot of teams that pop into mind. Well, I mean, there really is, and all of them I've already discussed.
True.
So
But who's the winner?
I'm just probably gonna roll back around and say for the value they got out of the picks they had, it's the Chicago Bears. Obviously the Caleb Williams pick was the slam dunk that everybody knew it was going to be since December. Pairing him with Romo Dunze, giving him that offense is just an incredible starting spot for Caleb. And then you drafted offensive tackle in the third round. You drafted an edge rusher in the 5th round. I mean, yeah, and then you drafted a punter. I mean, I like the idea, but it was still probably a little too high for the punter. But out of 5 picks, you nailed all 5 picks. One was probably, like I said, a little higher. I saw Tory Taylor on a lot of boards in the 7th round. So I thought it was kind
Mhm.
of questionable to take him in the 4th round when you could have taken somebody with a little more value, but I still like the idea of taking a punter. Tory Taylor was the best punter in the draft out of I don't even know how many punters. So I mean the sky's still the limit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I really think that for the amount of picks the Bears had, only 5, they had insane value in 4 out of the 5.
Yeah.
And if Tory Taylor becomes the next great punter, um, who knows? We'll look at that pick and go, what did they know? But
What did they
I
know that we didn't know?
exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
there we go. Let's recap the list really quick. Bills at 5, Eagles at 4, Steelers at 3, Rams at 2, Bears at 1. I
What an
think that's
odd
a really
list.
good list. That's a
What an
great
odd
list.
list. You said Eagles. What an odd list to have. But I actually, hey, I like the idea of odd lists, and
I think
there
it's a
were a lot
good
of
list. I mean, if you look at all 5 teams, the criteria here really could be the late round picks on top of your top picks, right? You can have really good top 3 picks, or your top 2 picks could be really good, but if you flunk out in the later rounds, it really doesn't feel like a good enough it could still be a good draft because your top 2 picks, but you have to find the quality in the later rounds, and all 5 teams did that.
mhm,
And I think that what makes this a really good list because it's not focusing on that top tiers, those top 3 picks. It focuses on what do they do on the entire in the entirety of the draft that
mhm,
these teams did, and all 5 of them did that from top to bottom, and they will all have some serious competitions within their training camps as we get closer, as
mhm.
we are now when this show comes out on May the 2nd, you know, start counting down the days to training camp because rookie mini camps are starting up within the
Mhm.
next week. And two teams will start this weekend. Most teams will go next week, and then we're into OTAs. I believe toward the end of the month and start of June, and then it's either OTAs, then it's minicamp, or it's minicamp before OTAs. Either man, it's flip flop one of those OTAs and mandatory minicamp. One of them comes off towards the end of the month, I believe, and then the other one comes in June, and then end of July is training camp. We're almost there.
Mhm.
We are
We're
almost
getting there.
there.
We're getting there. Slowly, but we are
Getting there.
getting there.
I believe the NFL schedule is set to come out sometime next week or the week after. Either and I would feel like the 9th or the 16th because it normally comes out the second week of May, so that would be the 16th, or the first full week of May, either the 9th. But we'll have you covered either which way in the schedule release because I believe we're doing mock schedules on Monday. So,
That'll be
like we did
interesting.
last year, mock schedules. We've
Oh,
evolved from mock drafts to mock schedules. That's
yep.
where we are right now.
Unbelievable. We're really out here talking about mock schedules,
Mock
thinking about
schedules.
how many times we're gonna have to break our sleep schedules just to stay up and watch the Bills play. Oh man,
It's
we are
If you
I am
watch the Snell
ready.
and Matt show, it's always game day in Buffalo. They had the one of the guys that makes the schedules on, and the feeling is the Bills are going to be filtered with prime time schedules. I believe the max they can give a team, but there's really is no max.
Yeah, I
But,
don't
like,
know if
the
there's a set
as much
max
as they
either.
want to give a team is about 6, but obviously they could go more if they feel like it's a good matchup. The Bills have a lot of good matchups in their schedules, just look at their opponents.
Oh, geez, don't
But
even start me
that's
on
for
that one.
Monday.
That is indeed for
That's on for
Monday.
Monday. That should be a fun show. That's a show that I've enjoyed last year. And then really just from there on out, we're going to have a lot of interesting shows, a lot of different lists. I know Connor, you have an idea about combining NASCAR and NFL together and making a team. That's coming up within the near future. Just have to
Mhm.
pin that to a date.
Yep.
Uh, we're going to try to work on some we're going to work on trying to get some bigger guests on the show and grow the show as much as we can
Mhm.
and finally hit 100 subscribers on YouTube.
We're
And
getting
if
there.
you're watching, like and subscribe and also pass the word along. Say that we're
Oh, yeah.
really good co-hosts and we're the best show out of everyone uh, that you have watched over the last year. So with that, tune in on the show on Monday. We'll be back. Connor's takes won't be back for another week after this as I head back to the ballpark. But until the next Connor's takes and to the next show of the Undercovers on Monday, go Bills.
Go Bills.